Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited you're joining me today because we are going to completely dismantle and rebuild something that honestly holds pretty much all of us back at some point, and that is our relationship with failure. Most of the time we treat failure like it's a dead end, right? Like something to avoid at all costs. But what if we flipped that script? What if failure wasn't a stop sign, but actually the only reliable vehicle for progress? Well, today we're unpacking a masterclass on this exact mindset, pulling directly from a profoundly inspiring motivational speech by Denzel Washington. So get ready, because we are going to fundamentally reframe how you look at taking risks. All right, let's jump right in with a super powerful thought from Nelson Mandela. He said, "There is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living." Denzel actually uses this to set the stakes right out of the gate. I mean, think about it. We are constantly pressured to play it safe. Pick the secure major, take the stable job, just keep your head down. But playing small, it literally starves you of passion. At the end of the day, nothing in life is really worthwhile unless you are willing to take a risk. Growing up, through school, and just life in general, you've probably heard people tell you, hey, make sure you have something to fall back on. It sounds so practical, right? Like really sound advice. But let's think about the physics of that for a second. If you're constantly prepping a soft landing behind you, you aren't fully committing to the thing right in front of you. Denzel completely challenges this idea with a counterproposal, falling forward. He figures, look, if I'm going to fall, I do not want to fall back onto some safety net. I want to fall forward. Why? Because at least that way I can actually see what I'm going to hit. You've got to embrace the stumble because it's literally carrying you in the direction you actually want to go. Section 1, the hidden history of success, or really, the math of falling. So, to really wrap our heads around the power of falling forward, we have to look at the hidden math behind massive success. Check out this number, 2,600. That is a huge number. Any idea what it represents? That's the exact number of times baseball legend Reggie Jackson struck out in his career. It's actually the absolute most in the entire history of baseball. He failed at the plate 2,600 times. But here's the brilliant catch. You don't hear about his strikeouts, do you? Nope. People only remember the home runs. He literally had to fall forward 2,600 times just to become a legend. And this perfectly illustrates that exact same point, just in a totally different field. 1,000. That is the number of failed experiments Thomas Edison had. 1,000 times. The guy built something that just did not work. But he didn't quit. He fell forward because it was that 1,001st experiment that finally gave us the light bulb. Every single one of those failed experiments wasn't a dead end. It was just one necessary step closer to the win. So how does this apply to the way we solve everyday problems? Well, you might actually know this one. It's the classic 9-dot IQ test. You've got a grid of 9 dots, and the rules are super strict. Draw 5 connected lines through all 9 dots, and you can never lift your pencil. The trick to it? The only possible way to solve it is to physically draw your lines outside the imaginary box that those dots create. And the lesson here is pretty profound. If you want to get something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. You can't be afraid to think outside the box. And maybe more importantly, you can't be afraid to fail big and dream big to get there. Section 2. Personal stories of failure and the art of failing relentlessly. It is so easy to look at a massive celebrity like Denzel Washington and just assume his path was paved with gold from day one. But early on in his acting career, his personal story was a literal masterclass in relentless failure. He talks about auditioning for a part in a Broadway musical. As he tells it, it was the absolutely perfect role for him. Everything just aligned beautifully, except for one tiny, kind of glaring detail. He couldn't sing. So, as you might guess, he totally bombed the audition and did not get the job. He failed. He embarrassed himself. But here's the thing. He didn't quit, and he didn't fall back to some safer career. He simply walked out of that room, started praying, and started prepping for the next audition. He continued to fail time and time again, but he held on to this really fantastic old saying, "You hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're going to get a haircut." It basically means that if you simply refuse to leave the arena, if you maintain your consistency even when you're failing left and right, you are eventually going to catch a break. Without consistency, you'll never finish. You just have to embrace the suck because, well, it's inevitable. And wow, did he ever catch a break? Decades later, he ended up starring in the incredible play Fences on Broadway. But here is the absolute kicker, the true poetic justice of falling forward. That massive, career-defining play was hosted at the Court Theater. That was the exact same theater where he completely failed that very first musical audition 30 years prior. I mean, you literally can't make that up. The crucial takeaway here is this. You probably have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail? Because if you don't fail, you're not even really trying. Your life is never, ever going to be a straight line. Fun fact, Denzel actually started out at Fordham University as a pre-med student. He took a class called cardiac morphogenesis, realized he couldn't even pronounce it, let alone pass it, and bailed. So he jumped over to pre-law, then journalism. He had absolutely zero academic focus, and his GPA tanked to a dismal 1.8. The university actually politely asked him to take some time off. He was 20 years old, at his absolute lowest point. But then, on March 27, 1975, he was helping his mom in her beauty shop in Mount Vernon, and a local elder gave him a spiritual prophecy. She looked right at him and said he was going to travel the world and speak to millions of people. From a 1.8 GPA dropout to a global icon fulfilling a prophecy, that is the messy, incredibly nonlinear reality of falling forward. Sometimes hitting a wall is the absolute best way to figure out where you're actually meant to go. Section 3. Ghosts of unfulfilled potential and the real cost of playing it safe. Okay, I want to radically slow things down for a second here. We've talked a lot about the mechanics of failure, but what happens if you actually choose to play it safe? I want you to picture a pretty chilling scene. Imagine you're at the very end of your life, lying on your deathbed, and standing all around your bed are ghosts. But these aren't just your standard ghosts. These represent your unfulfilled potential. They are the ghosts of the ideas you never acted on, the ghosts of the talents you hid away just because you were too scared to fail. And as they stand there around your bed, they aren't peaceful. They are angry. They're deeply disappointed. They look right at you and they say, "We came to you because you could have brought us to life, and now we have to go to the grave together." Just let that sink in for a moment. How many ghosts are going to be standing around your bed when your time comes? Because that is the true heavy cost of not taking risks. It's not just about missing out on a little money or fame. It's about the literal death of your unique potential. Section 4. Defining your path forward. Because the world really needs you. We absolutely cannot let those ghosts go to the grave with us. The world right now is facing some tremendous challenges, from deep poverty in places like South Africa to struggles in the Middle East, Japan, or even right here at home in places like Alabama, Tennessee, Louisiana, and Philadelphia. The world is hurting, and it desperately needs help, and it needs it from you. You've got to get out there and give it everything you've got. And it's so vital to realize that this isn't just about having traditional skills. Whether you're a business major, a theologian, a nurse, a sociologist, whatever, you have a unique gift. Maybe your gift is your time or your talent. Maybe it's your prayers or your treasures. Maybe you have money, or maybe you just have an incredible bottomless capacity for patience, kindness, love, or long-suffering. Whatever it happens to be, you hold a specific tool that the world requires right now. Which brings us to the single most important question of this entire explainer. What are you going to do with what you have? Notice it doesn't ask how much you have. The quantity doesn't matter at all. It's entirely about the action you take with the specific gifts you've been given. Taking a risk is about being open to people, open to brand new ideas, and just having faith. It's about taking the talents you possess and applying them boldly out in the world, knowing full well you might stumble along the way. So, as you navigate your life, your career, your relationships, please never get discouraged. Never hold back your potential just out of fear. Give absolutely everything you've got to give. And when you inevitably hit a roadblock, when you lose, when you embarrass yourself, or when you just plain suck at something, remember the math of Reggie Jackson and Thomas Edison. Remember that botched Broadway audition. Don't look for a soft place to land behind you. Fall forward. Embrace the impact, see what you hit, and let that momentum propel you right into your next attempt. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Now, I want to leave you with this one thought. What is the very first risk you are going to take today to guarantee you fall forward tomorrow?